Hey guys, how's it going? Companion. Today I'm going to do a video that kind of goes over what went on in the tournament that I casted and in many ways organized. It's the Challengestone tournament. The first one aired this weekend, and well, it was a blast. The feedback was amazing. And before I say anything more, I want to tell you guys that in this video there will be basically zero spoilers on how the tournament ended up. And if you want to see the tournament, there are VODs up on YouTube, which will be linked in the description, so you guys can check out that if you want. But out of the few things that I had to do to organize the tournament, one of them was to come up with the challenge. So you guys are probably wondering, if you don't know what Challengestone is, why would you need a challenge for a tournament? Well, Challengestone, just to keep it brief, is a tournament format that Rania and I have been working on for quite some time, and recently got a chance to basically get it done and show it to you guys, thanks through a lot of help from Tempo Storm and some of the sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And it's the idea that we have a tournament, and every single tournament we don't necessarily test the player's ability to execute in terms of play the few decks that have played for thousands of hours, thousands of times on ladder already, but we force players to create new decks, which they will then compete. And every single tournament, it will be a different rule set. So one of my jobs was, among a few others, was to come up with the challenge. So the challenge that we give to the players, we get them all in the same group, and we tell them, and then we show them the rules. We have like text format to make sure everyone gets it. Then they have like a certain amount of time, in this case it was 20 minutes, to make 3 decks of different classes that abide by the rules. And it's a little bit of a challenge. The challenge this time was odds and evens. And you guys can see that right up there. I'll go over all the little things here in a second. I tested this challenge among many others, and I thought 20 minutes was a good time, and I think it ended up being a good time. Most players were really stressed. The feedback from the interviews that we had with the players that are also as part of the tournament, they said the time seemed really short, but when you saw the decks, when you saw the result, it was very positive. There were some very strong decks that came through this format. And whenever you have a tight time limit, it's very critical that a lot of things are in balance. And a little bit of a tangent, the reason why we had not conquest format, we had like if you win a game, your opponent's deck is knocked out. Essentially, you have to stay with that class. This is like the old school Hearthstone tournament format. The reason we had that rather than Conquest, which if you win with your deck, it's knocked out. With the Conquest format, you need 3 good decks, 3 decks that are actually able to win a game. I think that's kind of bad. And one end, when you're spending your 20 minutes, you can choose to make 1 really good deck and 2 crappy decks if that's how you want to do it. But the other end, it really allows people to push the risk that they want. So if they think that this deck might really work or might really not work, they can do that in a tournament format that's not Conquest. Conquest is a good tournament format for basically ladder. So it's fine when it comes to most tournaments these days, but this is very far from most tournaments. So enough of that. The challenge. Build a deck with the following restrictions. All creatures used must have odd attack values. All spells must have even mana costs. And this might seem like something a little bit random, but when you look at it, it does seem a little random, but for some reason, most things in Hearthstone follow a line. So when you remove the even attack creatures from the selected pool of cards, you no longer have creatures that can silence. You no longer have big game hunters. So you can play really big minions, but it's not like really big minions are really overpowered, because, well, some decks in Hearthstone, some even aggressive decks, don't have silence or big game hunter. So if control decks owned them, well, people are playing more control decks. It's not really the case. The reason aggressive decks work is because they're really aggressive. And this kind of breaks that a little bit, but it breaks it on many different ends. So certain cards are a bit more useful than others. the general vast knowledge of Hearthstone and the history of Hearthstone, and cards that were good when there wasn't GVG out, when there wasn't Nax out, all that knowledge really comes into play when building these decks. And I think the few players that made really strong decks really showed their ability to adapt and remember the greatness that used to be. Like, Scarlet Crusader was a really good Zoo 3-drop back in the day, because 3-drops are all terrible. So yeah, it's a bit interesting on that end. Now there's a few other things when it comes to like the micromanagement of stats. When you put a stat restriction on cards, the stats are budgeted for a mana cost. So when you have a 2-drop, basically almost every 2-drop is going to be a 3/2 creature. So removal that does 2 damage is suddenly really powerful in the early game, as well as even health values are really powerful in this format, because with all attacks being odd, you will at the very least gain some tempo advantage from having an even health value, especially in the mid game. So if you have like a spider tank, well, your spider tank is going to eat up their 2-drop literally every time, and it might eat up 2 of them, or it might eat up their hero power, which again, you get that tempo boost. The spell restriction has the effect of just complementing the creature restriction, because if you have a restriction on creatures and none on spells, people just make spell heavy decks like Freeze Mage, like Combo Druid, and putting a restriction on spells basically breaks all the crazy spell combos. There's a lot of crazy spell combos out there, but if you just remove a few of these spells, it seems like none really persist. So the real idea that we try to go with Challengestone, and maybe this will change in the next few because we do want to spice it up, but in the very first one, we wanted to have people build genuinely good decks. We wanted an extremely clear format, and we wanted a format where the player's knowledge of the cards can really shine through. And this came through with a few specific cards. Obviously cards like Voidcaller being playable without silence is kind of a big deal, so Warlock is pretty good. At the same time, Druid with Innervate and Wild Growth is pretty good because you can ramp into big stuff, and there's no big stuff removal, but there's also these hidden gems. Like suddenly, Bolvar 4-Dragon. Oh, how about that? That's an odd attack creature, and without big game, without silence, suddenly this piece of crap is amazing. And I think it really shows people not only how great some of these cards are compared to how probably kind of bad some cards are. Like Big Game Hunter is awful for the game, Silence is pretty bad for the game, because it just hinders the ability to play so many awesome cards. But with the idea in this format is not only to push the players to really highlight the ones that know what they're doing, but also to show the audience really that the options in Hearthstone is like limitless. The engine, the type of game, the balance, it's almost unlimited. You can do so much, and I hope to maybe even raise the bar on how awesome the challenge ended up. Maybe the next Challengestone, which I hope will take place. Just to wrap up the rules here, the odds and evens. If you guys do want to play with your friends, it's going to be a lot of fun. Even though the players made some very strong decks, usually when you have a restriction outside of the one that Blizzard balances the game around, you're going to have a few type of decks that are going to be somewhat, maybe even objectively better than most. But if you have a time frame to build it under, it's almost impossible to figure all of that out. So that's really where the balance comes through. It's like everyone just does their best. And when you play with your friends, when you do this challenge, I think it will really highlight just how fun it is and just how testing it is to the knowledge, I guess. Some clarification: the restrictions only apply to the cards themselves. So like Fireguard Destroyer, it might come into play with 4 attack, but it's 3 on the card. It's on the card that matters, and that's the same thing with like spells. So it also only matters with cards you add to the deck. So if you play like Emperor Hearthstone, that reduces the cost of your even mana cost spell to an odd value. It's not like you can't play the spell. It's important that the Challengestone restrictions don't really impact the game, especially not in an obscure way. It has to be very clear. It has to be a very like honest type of gameplay. Now, some players are going to make some mistakes with a timed with a timed event, with it being somewhat stressful, with, you know, maybe you make a mistake here and there. We have to have every rule, every screw up, everything taken care of, just so, you know, the tournament doesn't get screwed up because we didn't plan on this thing going wrong or that thing going on. So yeah, people are going to pick the wrong cards every now and then. So the penalties is also a pretty interesting thing. I try to put cards that aren't particularly bad. So if you do have a card in your deck, this is how the tournament went. This is, of course, directly for the tournament. So if you had like, I don't know, a 2-attack minion, right? So you have a 2-attack minion. Well, you can't play a 2-attack minion because 2 is not an odd number. So we got to take something out. We got to take that out, and what do we put in? Well, we put in cards from this list, and the list is in sequence here. It starts off with the Enhancer Mechanos, which isn't a terrible card. It's all right. Then there's Novice Engineer, which is basically a redraw. So you can kind of make like 4 mistakes and be okay-ish. But then you get to like Explosive Sheep, Echoing Ooze, and down the list you can see you're going to have a terrible deck. And obviously all these cards abide by the rules already, so you couldn't find a sneaky way to put in a card you couldn't otherwise put in yourself, right? And for spells, it just goes off the highest mana cost spell. So if you have like a Thought Steal, where we take up the Thought Steal because that's not an even mana cost card, and we put in a Mind Control. That's the most expensive spell for that class. And if there are no spells left that are even, well, we go off the creature list. So that's how we proceeded. That's the challenge. I think it's a lot of fun. You guys should check it out. You guys should give it a try. If you haven't seen the tournament, you guys should see the tournament. And I'm going to leave you off with some gameplay. I just in the last 10 minutes of the stream before the final day of Challengestone, people asked that I play Challengestone with people on my friends list, and well, that's what I did, and it was only like a 10-minute thing. So yeah, you guys can see basically how it's like when you play this type of format with your friends, but it's also very cool to think about these kind of things. And you know, if you guys do end up coming up with some cool restrictions on the game, you know, post it, let me know, let the world know, because there's so much to Hearthstone, and you know, if you find something good in it, don't keep it to yourself, you know? Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed everything. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I want a lower curve. Okay.
I can ease your pain.
Okay. Juggler's more valuable, so I kind of assumed that would happen. Oh, come on. Alright, there's no more Shadowward Pains.
You face Challengestone, Lord of the
Are you serious?
to the void.
Easy game. What the fuck is that? Oh my god. Oh, that's fine. It's a 1-1. Oh god. That was amazing.
attention, class.
Alright, good. You have like no early creatures, so scrap Dark Bomb. Okay, we got Illidan. That was unexpectedly fun to watch. Yeah guys, I tested the shit out of Challengestone formats. Violet Teacher, Demon Lock. Come the fuck on, dude! Are you kidding me?
I can ease your pain.
From the void I come.
Alright. No Shadow Madness, please.
The damned stand ready.
Oh my god, yes, silence. Fuck.
To the void.
Good.
Pay attention, class.
Yeah, that's a good one.
To the void. From the void I come.
You can't run Holy Nova. Holy Nova is an odd mana cost spell. Evens only for spells.
Embrace the void.
Oh shit.
You are not prepared.
Repairs available.
Mix.
Pay attention, class.
Who shall be next to taste my blade?
Tokens, boys.
Repairs available.
It's pretty good if this wasn't ridiculously overpowered.